Kate Davis was just 6 years old, a little girl with wide eyes who looked at the world with wonder. Her days were filled with small adventures, making friends, and the innocent worries that come with being a child. She had a heart full of innocence, but also a deep sensitivity to the world around her. Sometimes, even at such a young age, she felt like something wasn't quite right, as though the world was not as it should be. One ordinary day, as Kate was riding her bike home from school, the unexpected happened. She was riding happily through the park, her bag bouncing by her side, when suddenly a car crossed her path. It happened too quickly. Kate lost control of her bike, fell, and was struck by the vehicle. The accident was severe. Kate fell unconscious and was rushed to the hospital. What no one knew was that, in that moment, Kate wasn't just lying in a hospital bed. She was in another world, a world that appeared full of light and peace. But instead of feeling comfort and safety, Kate sensed a heavy presence, as though someone urgently wanted to tell her something. She saw a bright light, a tunnel pulling her deep into the heart of a mysterious space, and there, at the center of the light, stood a figure. Kate knew immediately who it was. It was Jesus. Though she had never seen him before, she recognized his loving gaze and calm presence. But what struck her most was the serious look in his eyes. This was not the gentle smile she had seen in children's books or pictures. It was a gaze that told her something important had to be said. Jesus didn't speak in the words that we understand. Instead, Kate received the message directly into her heart. It was as if her entire being was filled with a clear understanding. He showed her images of the world as it was: wars, hatred, people hurting each other, and a planet suffering from the choices of humanity. The images were confusing for such a young child, but she understood that these things were not right. "The world needs you," Jesus said in the stillness of her soul. "People have lost their way. They have forgotten how to look at each other with love, how to care for the earth and for one another." Kate felt the weight of the message, but at the same time, there was a sense of hope. Jesus told her that there was always a chance to make things right, as long as people chose love over hatred, peace over war, and unity over division. But it wouldn't happen on its own. It was important for everyone to start listening to the gentle call of their own hearts, to see the world through the eyes of love. "The choice is theirs," Jesus said softly. "But time is short. The world can be saved if people come together, in love." Before Kate could ask more questions or fully understand, she felt a gentle pull on her hand. It was as if something was calling her back, and slowly, very slowly, she began to wake up. When Kate opened her eyes again, she was back in the hospital, surrounded by the faces of her parents and doctors. Her body felt weak and tired, but her mind was clear, filled with everything she had experienced. It was hard to comprehend, but she knew the message she had received wasn't just for her. It was something the whole world needed to hear. Kate began to talk about what she had seen and heard. She spoke in simple words, as any child would, but the power of her message was enormous. She told everyone that the world needed to choose love, choose peace, and that people needed to stop fighting and start understanding each other. She understood that her experience wasn't just a dream. It was a warning, but also an opportunity. The people who listened to her didn't know exactly what to make of it. How could a 6-year-old girl understand such deep things? Yet, there was something in her eyes, a depth of wisdom that touched them. They understood that this wasn't her own thought, but something far greater than herself. Kate's message was simple but powerful. The world needed to change. People had to learn to live not from fear or hatred, but from love. Kate understood that the choices people made had an impact on the future. She had seen what could happen if people didn't listen, but she also knew that there was always hope, as long as they chose what was good. Kate continued to live as the little girl with a mission, despite her young age. She told her story as much as she could, not out of pride, but because she felt she had to do something for the world she loved. The world wasn't lost, but it needed time to heal, and that healing would begin with love in the hearts of its people. After her experience, Kate felt different. It was as if she had received something very precious, something that filled her heart with love, but also with a deep responsibility. She was still so young, but the wisdom she had been given felt larger than herself. It was a message not just for her, but for the whole world. In the weeks following her experience, Kate began to see the people around her in a new way. She saw the pain in the eyes of the adults, the worries that often gripped them. She understood now that many of those people, no matter how strong they were, had also lost their way. They lived in a world that sometimes confronted them with fear, anger, and misunderstanding. But Kate knew love could ease that fear, and that was the message she tried to live each day. Her parents, who had initially been unsure of what to make of her stories, began to see how her life was changing. Kate was no longer just the innocent little girl who simply sought joy in the world's little things. She began asking questions that adults often avoided. She asked why people didn't help each other, why there was so much fighting, and why people weren't always kind to one another. She said to her parents, if everyone just tried to be a little bit kinder, everything would be better. Her parents, who began to take her stories more seriously, explained that the world was sometimes complicated and hard to understand, but that she shouldn't lose her trust in love. And so it happened that Kate, in her own pure and innocent way, began to touch people with her message of love. She started talking with her classmates, and even the adults in her village listened attentively when she spoke. We need to care for each other more, she said. It doesn't matter where you come from or how old you are, if we all love each other a little more, we can make the world better. Kate's words, simple and pure, began to spread. People around her started making small changes. They smiled, at each other more, helped one another without expecting anything in return, and began thinking about how they could help the world around them. It didn't seem like much, but Kate understood that the power of change always started small. A smile, a kind word, a hand reached out. The message Kate had received wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation to choose love and peace each day. She was living proof that even the smallest act from the purity of a child's heart had the power to change the world. And so, her mission began, not only to warn others but to remind them of the power we all have to live in love. Because, as Kate often said, if we all shared just a little more love, the world would be a little more beautiful.